All right, so the quiz is tomorrow, not today, as I originally scheduled it. But that's okay. Let me just go through. I'm going to go through it real quickly. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. All right, so this is not going to be in depth, but I'll give you a basic idea of what to expect on the quiz. So numbers 1 to 3. It starts off saying if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. Okay, if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then I ask you about 3 different things. So I might ask you, what are the relationships we know when two parallel lines are cut by a transversal? Do you remember that? We had what? Alternate interior angles. We had alternate what? Exterior angles. We had corresponding angles. What else do we have? Consecutive interior angles. Remember that? I think that's all of them. Didn't we? No. All right, so what do we know? If two lines are cut, if two parallel lines, so here's our situation. I don't draw this picture on the quiz. I just say if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the alternate interior angles are blank. The alternate exterior angles are blank. Corresponding angles are blank. So forth, okay? So if you had two parallel lines cut by transversal, remember that? Then what's true about the alternate interior angles? Those two right there. What's true about them? Don't say same. They're not the same. They're different angles, okay? So don't say the same. They're what? They're congruent or equal. I'm fine if you say equal, all right? Congruent or equal. All right, I'll just say equal, make it a little easier. All right, what about the alternate exterior angles? I am not going to draw it. I just tell you this. You can draw it if you want. I'm going to tell you which ones to find. There's 4 of them, but this is 1 to 3, so I'm going to give you 3 of the 4, okay? So you got to, if I say alternate interior angles, and then I put a little blank next to it, right? A little blank here, here, and here. And you fill in what's true about them, okay? If two parallel lines are cut by transversal, then the alternate interior angles are what? Equal, all right? So you can just say equal like this. What about this? Alternate exterior angles. What's true about them? They're equal as well, all right? So where's the alternate exterior angles? This one and this one. That's one of them, right? There's 2 sets, but there's 1 set. What about the corresponding angles? What's true about the corresponding angles? Like this one and this one. What's true about them? Well, look, follow my thing. I'm not going to say they're on the same side. Okay, what am I saying here? They're equal. What's the relationship? They are equal to each other. Corresponding angles are equal to each other. Okay, what's the only one that's not equal? The consecutive interior angles. And what's the relationship between them? They're supplementary. I'll just put sup. Now, I'll put the whole thing so you don't on the quiz. All right, and they're supplementary. Easy as that. We good? All right.
So do we have to do that for each one? Like for number 1, you put all of those, or?
Yeah, this is 1 through 3. I said three of the 4 will be on here. Okay. I just gave you all of them, but I'm only going to ask for 3 of them on the quiz. Denise? Okay. Alternate interior would be these 2 right here. Okay, and they're equal to each other. Natalie? I am. Anybody else? Normally I wouldn't, but since Isaiah left, so if you ever talk to him or whatever, just tell him it's on there. All right. So 4 and 5 deal with this situation. They deal with 2 parallel lines cut by transversal. but you're actually going to get numbers, okay? So numbers 4 and 5. I'm not going to do the problems. I probably talked too much on that first part anyway. So watch, if these are parallel lines, and I'll probably number them, right? Seems like it's been a while since we've done these, doesn't it? Yeah, but so I'll number them, and then I'll assign some values. I'll say, okay, angle 1 is 130 degrees, and then I'll say find. Said I wasn't going to go in detail. I guess I am. Find angle, I don't know, 8. Okay, so what if I said angle 1 is 130? What's angle 8 going to be?
130.
It's going to be 130. Why? Because they're equal, because they're what kind of angles?
Alternate exterior.
Alternate exterior angles, okay? And that's the kind of stuff I'm going to do, all right? So it'll be something like this. I'll tell you one of the angles, and I'll ask for the value of one of the other angles, and you just got to figure it out. So number 4, I'm just going to put a regular number. Number 5, I'm going to give you a couple values, but they're going to be in terms of x, okay? So you can write this down if you want, but I don't know if this will come out even. I'm just making stuff up. So what if I said like angle 3 is 5x plus 2 degrees, and angle, I don't know, 6 is equal to 3x minus 1 degree. I don't know if that works out, but if I did something like this, what would you do? What would your first step be? If I told you angle 3 was this, angle 6 was this, what's the relationship between 3 and 6? They're equal to each other, right? Because they're alternate interior angles, so they're equal to each other. So what would you do with these two things? Set them equal, and then solve for x, and then it might say find angle 3 or something like that. All right, so what's angle 3? Well, once you find x, what do? Plug back in, right? Get a value for that. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, I don't know if that works out nice and even. Okay, it's fine. The one on the test will, or the quiz. It'll work out, give you a nice even number, right? Integer number, no fractions or anything. You'll be good to go. All right, enough of that. 6. Now we're getting into the stuff we've been doing fairly recently. Find the distance, and then given 2 points. All right, so I give you 2 points. I don't know, let's just make up a couple points. 3, 1 and 5, 2. All right. All right, and you want to find the distance between these 2 points. Do I have to go through that? I do? Oh, goodness. All right. Well, you got to know the distance formula, right? You got to know it. I'm not going to give it to you. It's got to be memorized. I told you when I first taught this that you had to know it. So this is what I do. I do this before I throw any numbers in there. Okay? It just makes it a little easier. I call this, I've never heard anybody else call it, but I call this the shell of my formula. Okay? Now we're going to put in the stuff. All right? Put in the stuff to our shell. So what do? What goes in here? X what? X1. Well, what do I do? Not just and. Minus. That's right. Okay, so it's x1 minus x2. All right? It doesn't matter what order you do it in, because you're going to square it anyway, and that's going to always make it come out positive. And then you do the y's. And to tell you the truth, it doesn't matter if you do the y's first or the x's first, because when you add them up, does it really matter what order you add them up? No. All right? So it's just a matter of plugging it in. I don't know if this comes out real nice. Probably not, but let's do it. All right, so let's subtract the x's. What are the x's? The 3 and the 5, okay? You could go 3 minus 5, or you could go 5 minus 3. It doesn't make any difference. All right, I'll just go 5 minus 3 so I don't have a negative. Is that all right? All right, and then let's do the y's. Subtract the y's. I could go 1 minus 2 or 2 minus 1. Doesn't make any difference. I'll go 2 minus 1. All right. 5 minus 3 is 2. We could do this in our head, but I'm going to write it down just so you see it. And then 2 minus 1 is 1, but you are squaring that, right? You're squaring them both. and then you work it out. 2 squared is 4 plus 1 squared is 1. What is that? Square root of what? 5. And that's it. Just leave it like that, okay? There's no reason to change it into a decimal. Okay, just leave it square root of 5. Yeah. Yeah. If it comes out like that, like if you got something like the square root of 28, you can actually simplify that. It sounds like you guys from the other day said you didn't do this in Algebra 1. Did you do anything like that? Simplify that? No? Let me just show you real quick. You don't have to. If you came out with this, just leave it and circle it, okay? Because I haven't really taught you. You should have been an Algebra 1 topic, but, sometimes it's not. So here's what I would do. There's a rule in algebra that says, let's figure out what times what is 28. Well, there's several things that multiply together to be 28, okay? But there's one particular pairing, okay, that is the best way to go. Now, you could go 14 times 2, but can I take the square root of 14 and come out to an even number? Can I take the square root of 2 and come out to an even number? Can I? Square root of 2? No. Because square root of 2 is like 1.1414 something, blah, blah, blah. But, watch. What else is 28? 4 times what? 4 times 7. Now, can I take the square root of one of these? Yeah. Which one? The 4, okay? That's how I chose 4 and 7, and I didn't choose 2 times 14, okay? Now, we have a rule in algebra that says if you have two things that are multiplied inside the square root, we can actually separate them and put each of those numbers inside its own square root. So how would I write this? The square root of 4 times what? The square root of 7. All right? You never learned this? All right. Well, it's about time you learned it. So here it is. All right? How does that help me? Well, because I can simplify the square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? It's 2. Can I simplify the square root of 7? Nope. So it's just 2 square root of 7. That is simplified. Am I going to ask you to do that on the quiz? No. If it was an algebra class and I was teaching the lesson on that, you would absolutely have to simplify it. Okay, but it's geometry, and we didn't officially teach the lesson on this, but that's how you do it. Okay, so remember, was it yesterday, day before, whatever it was? I was reading off the answers, and I gave like the 2 numbers instead of just the 1. That's why. Make sense? Okay. But I'm not going to ask you to do that. If your distance came out to the square root of 28 and you circle square root of 28, it's fine. Don't put it into a calculator and give me a decimal. All right? Not for what we're doing now. Like in real life, in real world situations, yeah, you would absolutely. You're not going to measure something. Looks like about the square root of 5. No, you're not going to do that, are you? All right, you're going to put it into a calculator, get some decimal approximation. Right? So in real life, yeah, you would simplify it. But high school math is not always real life, okay? Sometimes you just want to simplify things to make it as easy as possible. All right, let's do midpoint. 10. There's always 10 on a quiz. Always, always 10 on a quiz. It is tomorrow, yes. Oh, I don't know. Let's take those same 2 points. Again, we just made these points up, okay? So let's, so this would not be 6, this would be 7. What do you think you're going to find now? Find the what? The midpoint. Good. All right, so let's find the midpoint of these 2 points. Okay? No, I just made these up, right? You told me 5, 2, right? And I just made up 3, 1. So we just made this up. No, they are different. She said, are you going to, all 3 of these, are you just going to give like the same 2 points to find the distance, the midpoint, and the slope? No. Each one's going to be different, right? So the distance will have 2 different points, midpoint will have 2 different points, and slope will have 2 different. But just for us, for right now, let's just use these points. All right, so what's the midpoint? Well, it is a point, isn't it? So a point has to be inside parentheses and a comma in between. It's an ordered pair. It is the midpoint. So mid means we're taking what? Half of it, right? Remember that? So what do we do up here with midpoint? Again, this is something you got to know. You got to know the formula. What do? We do something with the x's. You add them together, okay? I'm just going to go x1 plus x2. All right, so this time you add the exponents together. On the other two, you're subtracting stuff, all right? On midpoint, you add them. So that's my x, and then we do the same thing with the y. All right? We went through the other day on why we add them together. I'm not going to go through that right now. If you're interested, you could always go back and look. All right, what do we do now? Again, this is a midpoint, so it's an ordered pair. So you got to put it in parentheses. So what do? Add the x's together. 3 plus 5 and divided by 2. Then we add the y's together. 1 plus 2 divided by 2. Okay? 3 plus, let's do this in our head. I don't have to write down the next step, do I? 3 plus 5 is 8 divided by 2 is 4. Let's do this. 1 plus 2 is 3 divided by 2 is 3 over 2. Just leave it like that. All right? There's no reason. Right now, again, in a geometry course where you're just learning how to do midpoint, there's really no reason to change that to a mixed number. No reason to change that to a decimal. All right? Just leave it 3 over 2. Now, if you did change it and you went like 1.5, it's fine. I give that to you. Okay? But why take the chance on going from here to here and getting it wrong? You know what I mean? Because somebody might actually accidentally put 2.5. Is that the same thing? No, it's not. So don't take the chance. Just leave it like that. Just make sure if you do get a fraction that you reduce the fraction. Okay? Changing this to a mixed number is not reducing the fraction. I've heard, like elementary teachers especially, say, oh, reduce the fraction. It's 3 over 2. You got to reduce it. It's reduced. It's already reduced. Okay, just changing it to a mixed number is not reducing it. Now, if they said change it to a mixed number, that's perfectly fine. It's a valid thing to learn. Okay, you should know how to change it from this to this. All right, almost done. 8 is what? Find the slope. And they give you 2 different numbers. Let's just use the same numbers. I don't even know what we use. What do we use? 3, 1, and then what? 5, 2. All right, let's just use the same numbers. So we got to find the slope. So you got to know the formula. You got to know distance formula. You got to know the midpoint formula, and you got to know how to find the slope. All right, so m equals, let's write it down. What do we do up here? The y is correct. It's y2 minus y1. Or you could do it the other way, y1 minus y2. It doesn't make any difference. But the y is always going to be on the top. How do you know the y is going to be on top? Because it's the rise. Rise goes up and down. The y-axis goes up and down, okay? So the y is always going to go on top. So what's on the bottom? x2 minus x1. Now, if you go the second y minus the first y, you absolutely have to go the second x minus the first x, all right? Everybody with me on that? Or you could write y1 minus y2, but if you go y1 minus y2, the first y minus the second y, you have to go, excuse me, the first x, whoops, minus the second x. We good? All right, let's do it this way right here. y2 minus y1. So what's my 2, my y2? This one right here, so it's what? 2 minus 1 over, then subtract the x's in the same order. 5 minus 3. 2 minus 1 is 1 over 2. That's the slope. Okay? So you should write slope equals 1/2. I didn't do it up here. I probably should have. I should have said the midpoint equals, and I should have said, I would not, but you should just get used to doing it. Where's my distance? Oh, that's right. I erased it. I selected it and got rid of it just to give you some space. I was wondering where that was. Okay. Everybody good so far? Alrighty. 9 and 10. It's talking about if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Now, you don't have to... 3, 5 was when we did the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. That is not going to be on this quiz. Okay, so the y equals mx plus b is not on the quiz. That's section 3, 5. All right, but this does give you a set of points. I don't think I can just make these up, but they're going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. All right, A, B, C, D, and E. I'm not going to give you specific numbers on this one, okay? All right, they'll put numbers in here on the quiz. All right, so there'll be points, with numbers and stuff. And they're going to say, tell me something, like 9 will say, determine whether each pair of lines is parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So they're going to say, okay, let's take line, I don't know, AC. All right, so let's take line AC, and let's take line, I don't know, BD. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. All right, you with me on that? So if I have these points, if I was to plot points on a graph, I could connect A and C, couldn't I? And I could connect what? B and D. You don't have to graph it to do this problem. Okay, all you got to do is find the what? The slopes. That's right. Find the slope. All right. So what you're going to do, there'll be numbers. We just found a slope. You already know how to find the slope. So what do? We take A and C and we find the slope. All right. So find the slope. I'll put a little AC right there. All right. And get whatever you're going to get. And then what are you going to do? Find the slope of what? BD. So take this point and find the slope. So you're just basically doing 2 slope problems, aren't you? All right, and you find the slope. Now, what if these two were equal to each other? Then what must be true about these 2 lines? They must be parallel to each other, okay? Again, I'm just going to make up a number, okay? So what if this was 5/7, okay? And this was 5/7. What could I say about these 2 lines right here? They would be parallel to each other, right? Don't put the symbol, just write the word parallel. Okay, so that would be your answer. But you got to show your work on how you got those slopes, okay? I got to see. Don't just guess. Don't just look at this and say, well, I got a 1 in 3 chance to get it, right? Parallel, perpendicular, or neither. It looks parallel, boom. No, don't do that. I want you to find the slope. So you got to do the work, right? Do the work. Find this slope. Find this slope. If they're the same, they're parallel to each other.
So it'll ask us to determine a specific line.
Well, they tell you to compare the 2 lines and tell me if they're parallel, if they're perpendicular, or it's neither.
So how would you
Is it going to be for what? Yeah, 10's the same thing.
know if it's
Okay, if they're perpendicular, what's true about 2 lines that are perpendicular to each other? So what if the slope of one line was 2/3? It's negative, right? So the slope of my perpendicular line, I like to do that. The book doesn't do it, but I like to do it. The slope of the perpendicular line would be what? -3/2. So if they say, okay, take line AB and line DE, all right, and compare them, right? And you do all the work, you find the slopes. If this slope was 2/3 and this slope was -3/2, what could you say about those 2 lines? They're perpendicular, okay? And that's what they're asking you to do. So that's the answer, but you had to do some work, didn't you, to find the slopes, all right? Not much work, but just that change in y over change in x thing. We good with that? And that's 9 and 10, all right? So I'll tell you right now, there's 3 choices. You got parallel, perpendicular, or neither, right? So I'll tell you right now that 9 and 10 will not be the same answer, okay? So if this is parallel, that's not going to be parallel, okay? If this is perpendicular, that's not going to be perpendicular. What if you did some work we'll say number 11. You don't have 11 on the quiz, don't worry. All right, I'm just saying. All right, let's say you had number 11, and you got the slope of one thing being, I don't know, negative 4/3, and you got the slope of your other line is positive 4/3. What would you say about that? Are they the same? No. Are they negative reciprocals of each other? No, because that's not a reciprocal. They are negatives of each other, right? But so you would just say neither. That's it. All right? So you got those choices. That's it. Make sense? Yeah, it should be pretty easy, shouldn't it? Feel a little bit better now? No? What's not to feel good about? Well, if you don't have these formulas memorized, if you don't have the distance formula memorized, and you don't got the midpoint formula memorized, and you don't have the slope memorized, then yeah, you're going to have a little bit of a problem there, especially slope, because there's 1, 2, 3 problems where you have to know how to do slope. In fact, each of these right here, you're going to have to do slope twice. So you got to do 2 slopes here, 2 here, that's 4, and then you got to do the slope for this one. So that's 5 times you're going to do the slope on this quiz. So absolutely know how to find the slope. Okay? Xavier, you getting all this down? Looks like it.
So for number 9, let's see so like for the line AC, when you're going to be solving for that, so the point A, is that going to be like x1 and y1?
No, they'll give you numbers. They're putting actual numbers in here.
Are they going to put x1 and y1 on the top of it?
No.
How do I know which one is x1 and y1 and which one is...
Oh, come on. You can answer that question yourself. You tell me.
Which one is...
Does it? Does it matter? Everybody look up here. Does it matter which one is x and which one is y?
No.
Oh, the x1 and y1, is that what you're saying? No, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, we said that earlier up here. See right here? It doesn't matter if you call this x1, y1, or you call it x2, y2. It doesn't make any difference because, look, you're just subtracting the 2 numbers anyway, right? So it's not going to make any difference at all. I know what you're saying now. I didn't quite get what you're saying. All right? Everybody with me on that? Any other questions? All right. All right, so that's the end of the recording. If you took good notes, you won't have to watch this again, but it's there if you need it. So good luck to you tomorrow.